45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, NFL Australia head office, American Football Australia head office, ABC studios, ESPN studios, worldwide. Joining us, as always, in the western wing of his mansion, at Danny Webb, AGSAU. How are you, mate?
I'm going well, mate. Very well, as you should surely know at this point.
I'm not 100% why. I'm sure we'll clarify at some point, but he's had a good day, by the sounds of it.
Absolute flyer.
Another man who is up and about in his authentic James Cook jersey in the eastern wing of his household at Charlie Pick. I always got to remember that one. How are you, mate?
Very, very well. What a great wildcard weekend.
For some.
Lots to talk about. But yeah, it's funny. It's that bittersweet time of the year where the football gets really great and you realise there's only 3 more weeks of football left. It's tough. It's a tough moment.
We'll talk about that more in the preview, but there is 7 games, 8 teams and 1 trophy left. That is it. After, like you said, a pretty incredible wildcard weekend. We do have some news to talk about first, and it comes in the form of coaching. Looks like, from all the sources that I've reached out to, and we've got at least one, says that Mike Vrabel is pretty much confirmed as the Patriots coach. It comes on the back.
Shocked.
Danny boy. Yeah, we picked it about 6 weeks ago.
Have you really checked your sources? Are you sure?
It's pretty much from Vrabel himself.
Yeah.
But we've also had the Cowboys put out a statement this morning saying that they're releasing Mike McCarthy and he's not coming back, Danny.
Neither of these are shocking stories, are they? Like, they were both pretty much written in stone. The Cowboys really couldn't run it back with Mike McCarthy. They have done their dance with him, and it just hasn't worked. Prior to this season, which was kind of a bit of a disaster for the Cowboys, prior to this, it was always the same story, same script. Get to the playoffs, fail in the playoffs, and then pack it back home and try and start again, and then they'd run the exact same team back. So there's no surprise there that the Cowboys are like, right, it's time to move on.
It's more that Jerry Jones actually pulled his finger out and did something. I've already seen that Loz Harash, our big Cowboys fan, has put on there. He's in that sweet moment where they've decided to get rid of their head coach and then make another terrible decision at head coach. So enjoy that sweet little time. But Charles, I don't know if you saw the statement from Jerry Jones. The first line, he brings it straight back to himself that I've supported him this whole time, especially the last few weeks. Say something nice about the man, not just make it about yourself.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think Jarrett actually has the ability to see the world through anyone else's eyes. I think that's the first step that you have to take with Jarrett. And also, like, him saying that he supported him all along, I think if you check the CCTV footage, I reckon Jarrett would have been nick-knocking McCarthy's house. Like, I reckon he would have just been bullying him constantly on the down low for most of the time. I get no sense that he has really been particularly supportive at all. I think Mike McCarthy, there may be coaching opportunities out there for him, but I think counselling should be the first step. He's sort of coming out of what is a toxic structure and abusive relationship. And I think he needs to just take some time and heal and figure out who he is deep down before he can move on. But like you say, very active in the off-season for Jerry, who's not done the GM job particularly well in the off-season the last few years, and cannot wait to see who he picks.
It's definitely a watch this space, and we'll have to get Loz on when it's actually decided because he'll have plenty to say about it, I'm sure. But we had 6 incredible games we're going to talk about, and it starts all the way back on Sunday for us, Saturday games, which is always exciting, weekend games. The Chargers, which I think is the biggest, maybe the last game is also up there with the biggest disappointment, but the Chargers losing to the Texans. Danny boy, do you think this is the upset of the week?
I'd say so. I think we definitely, as we spoke about this pre the podcast, we were definitely leaning way more towards the Chargers. We thought that they were probably going to play a little bit more because they've been playing much better form than the Texans have. And realistically, I think the whole Chargers fan base have to be incredibly disappointed that this is their start to their Harbaugh era. To be one and done in playoffs, it's just not going to be good enough. But really, that kind of came down to Herbert as well. He threw a career-high 4 interceptions. In the regular season, he only had 3 all year. And Stingley was a major part of that, where he snagged 2 of them. And we shouted him out right at the start as a player to watch and probably the most dominant force on the Texans defense. Since the NFL merger, only 3 of 33 teams, 3 have won 33 losses in the playoffs when a QB has thrown that many interceptions. So they're pushing shit really uphill when Herbert's doing that. Major shout out to the Texans, though, second straight year that they're going to advance. It was an absolutely defense-dominated performance, though.
And there was some special plays everywhere. Block punts, return for 2. It just always felt, Charles, that from the start, I reckon, the Texans looked, especially defensively, on top.
And it is a reminder just the level of talent that they actually have on defense. And the fact that the defense it's a well-coached outfit when it's clicking. They have had ups and downs all year, but they have the talent there. And if it clicks the way that it did against the Chargers, then, they can cause a bit of trouble. I mean, let's see how they do go against the Chiefs. It's going to be an interesting game. But, their D-line and their edge rushers, Will Anderson is a great player. It's worth remembering just, Eric Murray is great. They have had some really high draft picks to sort out their defense. And when it is humming, it is dangerous and tough. And I say that I remember them being really hard to handle for the Bills when the Bills lost to them early in the season. So that defense is great. I think also, though, was Stroud getting a bit of touchback as well? Was that offense starting to figure out what they could do and what they could be capable of? They had a very quiet first quarter, but it started to feel like maybe a bit of mojo coming back for Stroud. And if that's the case, they could be interesting. I think it's definitely an upset, and I think it is, as you say, Herbert. He's going to suffer that off-season and the discussion next year, no matter how well he plays. They're going to talk about him the way that they talk about how Lamar is great during the season but can't do it in the playoffs. But it's true. You look at the other teams that won over the weekend with all of these games, and they're protecting the football. They're not throwing interceptions, and it's the playoffs. You have to do that. One interception is a big deal in the playoffs. 4, of course, you're not going to come back from that.
And like you said, Danny, 3 for the year and 4 on the day. They took away his game, but the last 2 playoff games for the Chargers now, they were up 27 against the Jags and lost, and then obviously going in favourites and losing quite handsomely here, especially after they were pretty dominant in the first quarter, but just only put on a field goal, I think it was, maybe 2. So, yeah, not a great day, but seeing D'Amico Ryans on the sideline, Danny boy, got to give CJ Stroud some confidence, seeing the way he was getting up and about.
Absolutely, but so CJ Stroud deserves it. He becomes the one of 6 QBs to win his first 2 playoff games. Obviously, he's got a very tough task next week against the Chiefs. There's no doubt about that. But Stroud went 22 from 33, 282 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. That's a day out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you
and
said,
also, you would say for Stroud as well, he was, if you live online as much as I do on football Twitter, a lot of people, as they really struggled in the back half of the season, replaying the clip of him naming who he thought the top 5 QBs in the NFL were, and naming himself, I think, at number 3 on the list, and not naming, for example, Josh Allen on that list.
You can see how much that burns you.
Yeah, that's definitely been passed around a lot. So for him, you would say, and he has had, you saw when Tank Dell went out, the emotional roller coaster that he's had through this season. Maybe this can give him some of that confidence that he might need to perform against a tough outfit next week.
I don't think many people actually gave them a chance. So to get that kind of W is huge for them. Another team that wasn't given much chance was the Steelers, and they were well and truly pummeled by the Ravens at home. Lamar, Charlie, just looked in MVP form.
That's an argumentative way of putting things, but yes, he did look in MVP form, and I think also he looks oddly relaxed.
Yes.
You know, and he has the last few weeks. He's playing at an elite level, doing incredible things. There are plays when protection breaks down and there's scrambling going on. He's creating really well, and he doesn't look panicked. He looks composed and in control of what's going on, and that is, it is. He's a very dangerous player going into the next round of the playoffs, divisionals. Very, very hard to beat. And particularly when he's got Derrick Henry, 26 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. I don't know if anyone's brought up how useful Derrick Henry has been for the Ravens this year, but,
kind of silently in the background, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's just quite achiever. But there is, like you think about it, the Steelers beat the Ravens once this year that you would have hoped with that divisional familiarity that they might have put up more of a fight, but you really did feel like this one, the Ravens pretty much had it in the bag. Felt halfway through the second quarter they were just cruising, and that is, that's tough for the Steelers. Russell Wilson, 20 for 29, 270, and I think 1 touchdown. Not bad. Like 2 touchdowns. Sorry, apologies. Not bad. But, and this I think is a rule for the wildcard round, and it's going to be the same going forward. You have to have a 2-dimensional offense, and their best runner is Najee Harris. He had 6 carries for only 17. He did 41 yards receiving on 3 catches, doing much better receiving than running, and I think that is something that the Steelers have to figure out. That you have to have a better run game when you get to the wild card and beyond.
Danny, I reckon this was over. Charles said halfway through the second. I reckon it was 5 minutes into the first when Derrick Henry put his fist twice into whoever the cornerback was when he was trying to tackle him. Those couple of big stiff arms just set the tone for the game.
Yeah, anytime you have a 21-point shutout in the first half, there is very little coming back from that. It very much played out the way I thought it realistically was. The Steelers, towards the end of the season, really had a major drop-off. And it was evident the last time the Steelers played the Ravens. Yes, the Steelers beat them earlier in the season, though. It seemed like a completely different team. It's going to be very interesting with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields both being free agents, if either of them are going to stick around. I did see a beautiful mock-up of Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers jersey. Be interesting to see if he runs out there with Tomlin. I don't think Tomlin's seat is that hot. I think he's actually quite well respected as a coach in that organisation, so I can't really see the Steelers moving on from him. Definitely not straight away anyway. They might give him another half a season, then boot him if they start off with a losing record, but definitely not at the start. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, Steelers, black and
how long do they just remain mediocre because they are that? They've had 19 winning seasons in a row, so they never get a top draft pick. Like they're always mid-table draft picks. They're just mediocre after mediocre. They're never going to be a good team if they don't bottom out. How long do the Steelers put up with that?
Well,
19 seasons so far.
They'll sign another veteran QB and give it one more crack, won't they?
Yeah, so you want 20 seasons and then we'll fuck him off.
Yeah, that's it.
It
sounds nicer. It sounds way nicer than 19.
Look, I don't want to shit can Aaron Rodgers, but they'll sign him. Then they might bottom out, and then they'll be right.
Yeah. Well, if the Jets are anything to go by, maybe that's their plan. Maybe they will sign Aaron Rodgers, keep the fan base happy, keep the Steelers nation nipping at the heels, and then finish with a 3 and whatever season and get a good pick.
I don't know if the Jets are anything to go by. There's not many things in life that I'm going to follow what the Jets are doing there.
No, you can learn a lot of lessons from the Jets. You can learn a lot from the Jets, but not by doing what they do.
Yeah. We've spoken about the Jets too much in this postseason already. It's not a Jets game, but it was very dominant by the Ravens, and it's going to be a bloody good matchup that we'll talk about later in the week, the Ravens at the Bills, which is exciting. Speaking of your Bills, Charles, Danny boy, sit down, relax, sit on your hands, cover your mouth. The Broncos losing at the Bills on our first of our Monday games. Did you at any point feel worried?
I did. I felt worried before the game. All season long, the Broncos' defense has been trouble, and they, the Bills came in. Josh Allen had only been sacked, I think, 4 times in the whole season, or some incredibly low stat like that. But they also had the most sacks of any team, heading into the game. Also, they were great at stopping the run, heading in, for most of the season, one of the best run defenses. So I was nervous then. I was very nervous 4 plays in to the first series when Bo Nix uncorked a 43-yard touchdown. And interesting little factoid, I will just check here 100%, but Troy Franklin, who caught the touchdown, it was the first time ever in playoff history that a rookie threw to a rookie for a touchdown, which is odd. I would have thought that had happened before. But what is interesting is Bo Nix on the day had 13 of 22 for 144 yards. 62 of those yards were on their first possession. There was a 19-yard to Cortland Sutton, and then the 43-yard touchdown. It was a beautiful throw, and I was scared at that point. They were up 7-0, and I thought, Sean Payton's come in with a plan, and he's gonna screw with us. But after that, it was actually hard for the Broncos to have the ball long enough to do anything about it. What happened after that was an incredibly controlling display by the Bills. And I think I'll actually start here. Josh Allen did some amazing things, but I want to start talking about James Cook. Who, as you may not be aware, we talk a lot about Derrick Henry's season. James Cook has scored the same number of touchdowns as Derrick Henry this season. He is an RB1 and he is a force. He ran 23 carries for 120 yards and 1 touchdown, and the ball was safe in his hands, and he could keep taking these chunks and running. And the Bills, to be honest, they only scored 10 by half time, and it was a bit slow. But what that did is it completely set up Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, to go to town in the second half, and you got the full display of what the everybody eats passing game of the Bills can do. And Josh Allen protected the ball 100%. Only took what the defense gave him, did not try to push it, did not try any crazy throws, and absolutely could generate a very efficient offense. They were in control. The Broncos didn't score after that first series.
Was it 32 zip after
31 unanswered points from the Bills. One of the touchdowns is definitely worth going and checking on the highlights. It's 4th and I think it was 4th and too many. It was like 4th and enough. It was like 2 or 3.
Not manageable.
Not manageable. And they went for it. Play broke down. I think Josh had the ball in his hands. He threw it at about the 7-second mark of the play. And running back Ty Johnson takes a catch in the end zone for the touchdown. And it's a freakish / accidental body control that he actually stayed in bounds to take a catch. But if you watch that play, similar to Lamar Jackson, you look at it and you think there's maybe 2, possibly 3 quarterbacks who can do it. That kind of throw under that sort of pressure on a 4th down and the ability to just create something out of nothing. And that's, why next week is going to be incredible. The 2 MVP candidates up against each other. It's going to be, it's the battle that everyone wants to see. The other thing that's just worth saying for this game for the Bills, the big question on the Bills has been their defense all season. They gave up 40-plus points to the Rams, 40-plus points to the Lions. But after that one long bomb, they completely strangled the Broncos. And there was just some very good signs that Matt Milano is back to fitness, that Von Miller's generating a lot of pressure. And there is a sense that maybe the defense isn't as bad as some people thought coming in, and maybe the divisional game with the Ravens is going to not just be a shootout. It might be 2 good defenses and 2 good offenses going at each other.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an absolute thriller. Danny boy, we've heard enough about the Bills.
No.
What are your thoughts? Surely the Broncos fans are still pretty happy with the season as a whole, although the game didn't quite go the way they wanted.
They've got to be, don't they? They've absolutely got to be. You had them at a measly 3-win season, and they proved you wrong with a 10-7. Bo Nix has come out and surprised a lot of people. I know he spent a little bit longer in college and he's an older rookie, but he has definitely come out, especially towards this late part of the season, and just played with a lot more composure than I think anyone was expecting. And the team's really just been clicking on all cylinders for like what realistically should have been a middle of the pack team to make it to the playoffs. Yes, facing the Bills. We all assumed the Bills were going to get the job done. Could have been a cheeky Broncos upset. It would have got people going crazy, but didn't happen in the end. I still think the Broncos fan base need to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I gave them donuts at the start of the season, but they shoved it down my throat pretty quickly, and happy to say that because they were incredible throughout the season. So good things to come out of, is it Mile High next year? I think it'll be a good season for the Broncos with an extra pre-season under their belt. Now, a game we don't really need to talk about too much. The Packers lost to the Eagles. It was a good game. Well done. I didn't actually see the next game. We'll move on to the Bucks.
Let's wind this back. Take a seat, Tmac.
Yes.
This game actually had me way more nervous than I should have. Where the fuck was the Eagles offense? We spoke about it before the podcast, and you're like, nah, he's had 3 games off. He hasn't been cleared for concussion protocol. He's not going to have it. Then he came out on that first drive. We're talking about Jalen Hurts here. Sorry for anyone who didn't realize he was in concussion protocol. Hurts came out then on that first drive and had hit 6 of his first passes. I was like, this is fine. We're doing all right here. Pretty sure we scored on that first drive as well. But that was due to a really short field. There was a fumbled kick on the kickoff. But still managed to score, which we've hardly done all season on the first drive. I was like, this game is in the bag. Hurts then only completed 7 more passes for the rest of the game, for the entire game. If we didn't have Barkley putting up 119 yards and Jordan Love gifting us the ball 3 times, it wouldn't have gone that way. Once again, our defense is really strong, pushed us through. Barkley did have a chance to score on that final drive and was very classy and took a knee just to not put the hurt on it. Hurt some punters. I'm not naming any, but maybe this one, who had him for an anytime touchdown. But it wasn't a nice game. It wasn't a nice game to watch as an Eagles fan. You, for a majority of it, were like, we're still in this. And it wasn't until the second last drive that the Eagles scored on, you're like, nah, we're done now. It was a very tough watch, actually.
I did believe for a fair portion that we were into it. We did lose too many soldiers, I thought, which hurt us, incredibly. But the fact it took brilliance, like Goddard's, was it 20-yard touchdown where he pushed Valentine into the ground 6 times. I think he ran back and drove over him again before he crossed the line just to really rub it in. It took some brilliance. It wasn't the complete game that you were kind of hoping for, which, I don't know. I thought we battled well. Our defense was good. Barkley had 119, but he had a couple of big runs late. I reckon we actually held him pretty well. Like you said, he could have scored to make us look silly, but did go down. And then later on said it so he didn't pull a hammy. I'm pretty sure that late in the game you warmed up, you're going to be all right. But no, that was nice little touch. Also, a good way to finish the game so you can kneel it out and there's no worries. It is disappointing, but I do think that if we had to beat you, we would have got absolutely flogged the next week because we had 5 serious starters injured that day because you guys were tackling hard. You put out 3 blokes with shoulders because you buddy dived into their shoulders. It was ridiculous.
Hey, we sacrificed one. Nakobe Dean kamikazed himself during one of these tackles, and he's actually done his patella. He's torn his patella. They're talking maybe 12 months minimum for this injury. So he's not just missing the playoffs, but all the next season. And he was a very great addition that we've had. Second year defensive. But someone that I haven't spoken about much this season is Zach Bourne, and what a pickup he was from the Steelers special teams. The Steelers hardly playing him, just only on his special teams, and now we've got him as a Pro Bowler cornerback that is now playing for the Eagles, and it played incredibly whenever the game was a few days ago, and picked up an interception in that too. And he's good. Definitely a good person to have in this defense. And if it wasn't for the defense that we have and the Vic Fangio play calling that he's been doing, we wouldn't have won. We would not have won. So I really hope that this is going to light a fire. AJ Brown, 1 reception for 10 yards.
He was reading. He's more worried about reading books on the sideline. Everyone says how good it is, but I was like, mate, get your head in the game. Don't worry about fucking books.
So what is that? What is the mentality there, Danny? I'm new to this as a concept. So what is that?
When you're talking about that, are you just talking about the reading the book in general?
Yeah, reading a book when
so
you,
it's like a
you haven't got a lot of production.
It's a self-help, self-guided book, and apparently he said afterwards that it grounds him. He got interviewed again, obviously, and the presenters were asking him, like, you seem like disinterested in the game. He's like, why do you always say I'm disinterested? He's like, we won. Like, I'm fine. We won. Like, and that's all I think they really cared about. They will definitely work on it. He cannot just have one reception. Like a wide receiver of that talent to only have one reception. If it keeps him fit and healthy for this next game, fine. But the passing game just needs to improve. It's just as simple as that.
It does show that our defense was, I thought, pretty good across the game. We held them pretty well. Charles, as the outsider, do you have any quick thoughts about the game?
I think a little like you. I think it was a bit of a shame to not see who the Packers could really be injury-wise, and you know, and that's just true of, I guess, wildcard and playoffs in general. Teams make it. There are some who everyone's fit and they can choose from their whole roster and play their game, and others are, you know, papering over cracks. But I do think, you know, philosophically, you have to say it's still early days for the Packers. They're still, you know, a young side, and they're going to be in contention. They've got some great talent there. But I'll say that, like, I didn't watch, you know, I also felt definitely that the Eagles have a lot of work to do in the coming 6 days before they play to really get some rhythm to what they're doing.
It's still, I think, a good win for you guys to move forward, and it's going to make an exciting game next week, because I do think we would have been too banged up and absolutely flogged by the Lions if we had have gone forward. But well done, Danny boy. You current holder of the AGS Cup, but I'll be taking it swiftly off you next year, because I believe we actually play you during the season, so that's huge.
Yeah, we seem to be playing the NFC North again, but anyway, we'll talk about that next season.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. The next game, I'm going to leave it in your two boys' hands, because I had a big night and I didn't actually I watched the first half through half of an eyelid and the second half through no eyelids. So, Commanders, Danny boy, getting a win in what sounds like a pretty impressive game.
It was an incredibly impressive game. Just what composure from Daniels in that final drive where they went down, you know, used the clock well, and then kicked a field goal to seal the game. Actually doinked a field goal to seal the game, which, when that went in the air, I had the Commanders as my Any Given Sunday pick of the week this week as picking the underdog. And when that ball was in the air, and I'm like, that's going to hit the upright, I'm like, that's going to doink out. And then it luckily hit just on the inside and doinked in, and like, it was so loud. Those sticks are tiny. They're real thin.
$5 note.
Oh, absolutely crazy. But they end up getting the job done. And it was due to so much composure from Daniels. Like, seeing this rookie QB, the obvious offensive rookie player of the year, to go down and just, oh man, it was actually really nice football to watch. On that though, really wasn't the Baker that we'd known from the past, like where he comes up and absolutely shows out, especially in the wildcard playoffs. He loves to upset teams in this first round, really prove his worth. That's kind of how he cemented his contract with the Bucks, wasn't it? Because he came out and, absolutely dominated in the first round. Major shout-outs to the Commanders, though. First playoff win in nearly 7,000 days. Crazy stuff. So, yeah, it was good to see the Commanders get this one done. There was a lot of turnovers on the Bucs side, which, like, you know, you give the ball away, it's just going to be is what it is, isn't it? The other team's going to probably come away with the game.
The only thing I would add to that, watching it, was just about Daniels. It wasn't just composure. There were a couple of times that he took on, like, designed quarterback run plays and, like, ran through people to get first downs. It was gutsy as well. Like, he was doing hard running and hard work when they needed yards to survive. And so it was the situational football side of it that he really was controlling the play out there and making good decisions. But also, he was putting himself on the line, great leadership. And you can tell they're a team that's way ahead of schedule to win a wild card game. Now in their development is incredible, and it sets them up very well. But also, Daniels is a player who now the locker room can absolutely believe in him. He doesn't just say the right things; he does them on the field, and he puts himself on the line doing it. He's gutsy. He's obvious. Offensive rookie of the year, and just really excited to see what he does going forward.
Definitely. I reckon he brings a bit of that X factor, which makes next week's game, again, we keep referring to next week. We'll talk about it later in the week, but it'll be a very exciting game, even with them being, I reckon, quite huge underdogs. But, yeah.
I think anytime any commentating team is comparing you to Lamar Jackson in the way that you can pass the ball, have composure, and then run through players, if you're getting compared to Lamar Jackson as a rookie, and he is like a quarter of the size, he's much skinnier, I guess, than Lamar Jackson, or much more shredded, whatever way is less offensive. Anytime you're getting compared to Lamar Jackson, you got to take that. You got to take that with a massive pat on the back.
Yeah, and he's got plenty of years to refine his craft. So exciting game, huge win for them, and a bit stiff for Baker. You can see he was not happy at the end, which you're not going to be after losing the game like that. But the final game to speak about was, again, I reckon, up there with the most disappointing, the Vikings losing the first wildcard team to win 14 games. And they won just as many playoff games as the Packers did, so they can go and jump. Lost to the Rams, and they were very impressive. The game got moved. I didn't actually know that the game was that things were going on in LA until we got an email saying the game was moved to Arizona due to the wildfires in LA. It obviously meant nothing. Well, not meant nothing, but it had no effect on the Rams because they came out and absolutely dominated. They took the same kind of bully ball that the Lions showed last week. 9 sacks in the game, which was a franchise and a playoff record. Charles Laters came out and dominated.
Yeah, and it was a shame for Sam Darnold. Like, he was really, you could see just desperation in the way that he was playing, and he, like, some late in the game near connection on some really long passes, but he had no protection, and he was just like, I physically was feeling for Sam Darnold, but it's been a great season for him too. He's completely changed the narrative around him, but once again, coming up short with the Vikings on this occasion and by so much is very disappointing, just given the fact that they had a 14-3 season. Like, that's such a strong season. But as you say, they lost to the Rams and the Lions during the season
in consecutive weeks. They lost to the Lions week 6, Rams week 7, and then Lions week 18, Rams first week of the playoffs.
And that is just, that's the measure of, in the NFC, of where they are at. And the question then is, where to now for the Vikings and Sam Darnold? Do they keep him? I mean, the Vikings can't be unhappy with his play this season. Do you chalk this loss up to Sam Darnold, or do you say we need to rebuild our O-line?
It sounds like they're chalking up to Sam Darnold. So, Danny boy, as much as there's a loss for the Vikings, the Rams came out and were ready to go.
The Rams came out and absolutely dominated. They just came out and they were firing on all cylinders, defense, offense. It was actually looking quite good. Jared Verse return fumble for a touchdown was a thing of beauty. Like, he's up there for the defensive rookie player of the year. And he proved it. He proved why. And this is the team, obviously, the Eagles is facing. So I was watching this with probably a little bit more detail. I wasn't expecting the Vikings. I was expecting the Vikings to actually come out and play a little bit harder. And you could tell by after the first half, realistically, where the Rams put up 24 points, that the Vikings weren't coming back from this. There was just not enough motivation, really, on that side. And without that offensive line being able to protect Sam Darnold, like, how's he meant to do what he's supposed to do? He still threw 245 yards and a touchdown, even though he got sacked 9 times. It's just not enough. It just wasn't enough. Yeah. And the Rams actually did a little bit of wide receiver / tight end by committee as well, which is something I didn't really see happening. Cooper Kupp still not really getting targeted. He only had 1 target, 1 catch. It was for a 29-yard reception, but still not really getting targeted, which is interesting. It's just really interesting to watch. Yeah. Kyron Williams, though, wide receiver /
for those
running
2
back.
touchdowns. You picked him for 2 for our nice little AGS bet, and he nearly had it.
Oh, I know. So close. So close. But, hey, you win more than you lose.
Yeah. It's going to be an exciting game next week. I want one word from each of you to wrap this up. Danny boy, will this be the last game we see Darnold at the Vikings?
No, I reckon they signed him.
That was more than one word. Charles?
No.
I'm going to say yes. I reckon they're going to blow up somehow.
Contrary.
It's a real Vikings thing to do. But huge wildcard weekend. Well done to you two lads. Getting the W. We'll see you both hopefully later in the week to discuss next week. Final word.
Go
Go
Birds.
Bills.
Nice.
Perfect.